The Bosnian Genocide. An ethnic cleansing case study and international response. This tragic event unfolded during the Bosnian War from 1992 to 1995, leaving an indelible mark on Bosnia and Herzegovina. Historical background. Bosnia and Herzegovina, located in Europe's Balkan area, has a complicated past distinguished by its multicultural and multi-ethnic makeup. The history of the region may be traced back to antiquity, with different civilizations and empires leaving their imprints. Bosnia was an independent country ruled by the Bosnian Church during the Middle Ages before succumbing to the Ottoman Empire in the 15th century. The Ottoman period lasted over 4 centuries and had a profound impact on the region's culture, religion, and social structure. Bosnia became a melting pot of several ethnic and religious groups, including Bosniaks, Bosnian Muslims, Bosnian Croats, Bosnian Serbs, and other minority communities like Jews and Roma. The European Union, EU, played an important role in coping with the aftermath of the Bosnian Genocide. Here's a breakdown of the EU's activities, policies, and barriers and challenges in dealing with the genocide. European Union efforts and policies. Diplomatic engagement. The EU made diplomatic efforts to support negotiations and bring the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina to a conclusion. It backed diplomatic attempts like the Vance Owen Plan and, subsequently, the Dayton Agreement, which tried to bring the country peace and a political structure. Humanitarian aid. The EU gave substantial humanitarian assistance to victims of the Bosnian Genocide. It was critical in arranging and distributing humanitarian aid to individuals affected by the fighting, including food, medical supplies, and shelter. Peacekeeping operations. As part of international efforts to maintain peace and stability in the region, the EU sent peacekeeping personnel. For example, the EU deployed soldiers to UNPROFOR and later established its own peacekeeping mission, the European Union Monitoring Mission, EUMM, to monitor and support peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Accession procedures. The EU followed a policy of integrating Western Balkan countries, including Bosnia and Herzegovina, into the European Union. This program sought to promote regional stability, economic development, and democratic reforms, all of which were deemed necessary for long-term peace. The European Union's obstacles and challenges. Political disagreements. The EU faced hurdles as a result of political disagreements among its member states about how to respond to the Bosnian Genocide. Different countries demonstrated varying degrees of commitment and willingness to engage militarily or impose harsher sanctions on the culprits. Lack of consensus. The EU struggled to find a consensus on crucial Bosnian genocide concerns. Member states' priorities and interests differed, resulting in delays and inadequate decision-making in developing a coordinated response. Complex political landscape. The EU's efforts in Bosnia and Herzegovina were hampered by the country's complex political landscape. Ethnic divides and nationalist aspirations complicated and weakened the process of reconciling and implementing peace treaties. Trials for war crimes. The EU encountered difficulties in securing accountability and justice for war crimes committed during the Bosnian Genocide. Cooperation from Bosnian authorities, the arrest of indicted war criminals, and obtaining witness testimony were important roadblocks in the pursuit of justice. Despite these obstacles, the EU's presence in Bosnia and Herzegovina highlighted the EU's commitment to promoting regional peace, stability, and reconciliation. The EU continues to back the country's road to EU membership by giving help in areas including democratic reforms, the rule of law, and economic development. Responses to the Bosnian Genocide came from both domestic and foreign societies. Here's how these communities reacted to the Bosnian Genocide. Victims and survivors of domestic violence. The domestic response focused on the victims and survivors of the Bosnian Genocide. They bravely revealed their tales, testified in court, and demanded accountability for the horrors committed against them and their communities. International reaction. The United Nations had an important role in responding to the Bosnian Genocide. The United Nations Security Council passed resolutions, established peacekeeping missions such as UNPROFOR, and levied economic sanctions on warring parties. International diplomacy. Various governments and international organizations used diplomacy to negotiate peace treaties and mediate ceasefires. The Dayton Agreement, reached in 1995, ended the Bosnian War and established a foundation for Bosnia and Herzegovina's democratic government. It is crucial to emphasize that both the local and international communities' responses were not without difficulties and constraints. International public opinion. The Bosnian Genocide elicited considerable international condemnation and outrage. The media's coverage, eyewitness stories, and survivor accounts all helped to raise awareness about the horrors done. This public pressure was essential in molding international responses and policies toward the conflict. These reactions were hampered by political differences, limited resources, and complex dynamics on the ground. However, the united efforts of numerous players aided in bringing the genocide to an end, holding offenders accountable, and assisting Bosnia and Herzegovina's journey of healing, justice, and reconciliation. However, the united efforts of numerous players aided in bringing the genocide to an end, holding offenders accountable, and assisting Bosnia and Herzegovina's journey of healing, justice, and reconciliation. It is debatable whether the European Union's (EU) actions and policies were successful in dealing with the case of the Bosnian genocide. While the EU made considerable contributions and had an active part in dealing with the Bosnian genocide, there were both triumphs and areas where challenges and limitations could be highlighted. It is critical to remember that the Bosnian genocide was a complex and varied struggle for which the European Union has no primary culpability. While the EU made efforts, they were part of a larger international response involving a variety of parties. The Bosnian genocide is a tragic and horrifying chapter in recent history, serving as an example of ethnic cleansing and the world's response to such atrocities. During the 1992–1995 Bosnian War, a systematic campaign of violence, mass executions, forced displacement, and other types of brutality was conducted predominantly against Bosniaks and other non-Serb groups, leaving a lasting scar on humanity's collective memory. An examination of the international response to the Bosnian genocide finds both triumphs and flaws. While the international community's efforts, including those of the European Union, were aimed at ending the violence, delivering humanitarian help, and seeking justice, obstacles and constraints were clear throughout the process. Let us renew our resolve to encouraging tolerance, supporting peace, and opposing intolerance and prejudice as we reflect on the Bosnian genocide. We may remember the victims' memories, help survivors, and fight for a future in which every individual is appreciated and protected, regardless of nationality. References.